Hello and welcome to another episode of, I'm going to read it out because there's more than one word and it's Monday morning, Tuesday's Tea Break Talks with me, Nick Truman, your host. I run a podcast every Friday on this exact same podcasting channel, and on Tuesdays I do a little solo show. This is said solo show. I forgot to turn this light on behind me, so we're going to turn this on whilst we're recording. There we go. Most people don't get to see that light. So if you're watching on YouTube, the light is now on. If you're listening to this, what on earth is going on? Has Nick gone mad? I went mad years ago, and here we are still going. Anyway, welcome to this midweek Tuesday show. Today's tea of choice, I have a list of things to read out, and I'll give you the agenda in a minute. Today's tea of choice in a spec mug, which is our agency. I am drinking, I was going to read off my notes then. I didn't write that down. It's that is a peppermint tea. And it's delicious. So welcome to today's show. Absolutely delighted to have you tuning in. I've actually had more messages now about my Tuesday tea break talks, maybe because they're new, than we get about the Friday episodes. So if you want to send us a quick message and tell us what you like, what you don't like, or to send in a fun fact, a fun quote, or something like that, then please do let me know. Alligatorpear@gmail.com. And I've had a look. I don't know if you are a store or not, but you guys have sent in the fact of the week. Quote of the week. Quite the way. It is Monday morning. I'm very, very tired. I have not slept much over the last few days. I won't say why. But quote of the week has been sent in by alligatorpear@gmail.com. That's not your exact email, but it said alligatorpear and it was a Gmail account. So there was no name on it. So I don't know what your name is. So, and this still isn't you because this person died in 1970. But I love this quote. So we're going to kick off with this in this week's Tuesday episode. The difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. And that's Vince Lombardi, the American football coach, died in 1970. I checked this morning, 30 years before I was born. Which is going to make some of you feel really old and some of you feel really, really young. That you're running businesses and you are younger than that. But the reason I love this quote, and I wrote this as a little kind of response to the quote to myself. I actually wrote this about a year ago when I first heard this. Every time you think about giving up, remind yourself that it means you are on the very edge of what you are doing, hence why you're thinking about giving up. At this moment, you have a chance to define yourself and how you go about things in this moment. Quitting guarantees losing. So do not stop and keep that will as strong as you possibly can. So if you've not listened to one of these before, it's a little bit of a step back to have a look at what's going on in the Shopify world every week. A few updates from Shopify. Then I'm going to share something from one of our partners. And then I'm also going to go through some agency learnings from my agency, things we've learned last week, things we're seeing, things that you guys should go and check in your own businesses. And then we have a fun fact. We did it as a Quivia, a trivia question, not a Quivia, or maybe that's a new word. We did it as a Quivia. I'm going to stick with that last week, where it's a trivia fact, but we ask it as a question. And we are now going to call them Quivias. I'm going to add that to my notes. This is a Quivia fact. Of course, it is spell checking because it's not a real word. Anyway, Shopify news. So 4 updates this week in the Shopify changelog, and you can keep it on the Shopify changelog if you want. I'm going to add some comments to some of these bits. You can now customize the text on the sign-in page for customer accounts. The reason you would do that is to make it more specific and bespoke to you, because there's lots of Shopify stores out there in the world. The reason you wouldn't do that is maybe customers are used to the way that that page looks and what it says, and therefore trust it more. So as with all things, I'm going to use my favorite 4-letter word, test. Give it a test, see what happens. The second one is you can now control marketing consent on your Shopify forms. One of my team forced me to write in brackets next to it the word whoop, because that is quite exciting. The amount of people that fill out forms, but you're not allowed to send them emails in certain countries because of certain laws and regulations and other boring stuff that stops your business trading as much. I don't know why they keep adding these rules. I've been raging a war on cookies since pretty much they were introduced, which must have been 15 years ago now. I remember crossing a road, reading the news on my phone in my local town, and suddenly saw this thing about everyone's going to need a cookie banner. And I was like, nonsense. And now, still most of the sites in the world do not have cookie banners. Number 3, when you go into File Picker on Shopify, you can now, or maybe they were just announcing it, we'll be able to soon, generate emails. Not emails, sorry, images. I was reading the bit below. It's not emails. You can't generate an email. You can generate an image but when you're using the file picker within Shopify, which is quite exciting. So that's another little AI integration that's going to be using there. And finally, if someone has actually hit this limit, please tell me. I'd be fascinated just purely on a personal interest note as to how on earth you hit this number. When you create a draft order, you can obviously add tags to that order. The tags are now being limited to 250. If anyone has put more than 250 tags on a single draft order ever, please email me. I'd love to know what some of those tags were and why you've used so many tags. Sounds ridiculous. But I put in my notes, if you're hitting that, well done. Well done for hitting that. So that's Shopify news. Not loads going on this week, but a couple of interesting points. Definitely go and check out the sign-in page, customizable text on customer accounts. That is quite cool, especially if you've got quite a strong brand. You've got quite a kind of heavy brand presence across your website and your marketing. Then it'd be worth putting something into your brand messages rather than using Shopify as default. Partner news. Then it's going to be the shortest episode ever. Five minutes in, and we're already on partner news. How exciting! Partner news. Check out Quivia, one of our sponsors and partners. And we didn't jump into this relationship with these guys lightly. We did a lot of conversations with them, and we were ironing out a bit more information about how their system works and what it does. If you've not caught the episodes that I've done an episode with Anthony from Quivia, and it was fascinating to hear what they do. They have hundreds of thousands of suppliers all over the world, and you can find stock. And if you use the code WINNING in capital letters, WINNING, you get 50% off your first sample run. You can save time because these are all vetted partners. They literally will send people to the factory to go and proof your products for you. And they use a system to help you find the suppliers. So it's a bit like Alibaba, but way more bespoke. And these guys have a real handle on that, and will deal with a lot of the logistics for you and bring it straight to your warehouse. So I might have got one or two of those details wrong, but that is just a quick headline as to what Quivia do. If you're looking at your stock at the moment and thinking, this is taking too long to get stock, it's costing too much, one of our suppliers might disappear. There's plenty of wars and other stuff going on around the world at the moment. It's quite a scary time. So actually diversifying that supply chain and having, I would always recommend at least 2 factories in 2 different countries that could provide the same product at exactly the same quality. That now means you have a level of stability. And you might always want to order sort of 80% from one and 20% from the other, just to keep those relationships sweet between the 2 factories. You could even make them fight for price. But Quivia make a lot of that sort of stuff easier. So highly recommend checking it out, even if you're absolutely fine with your supply chain, even if you're thinking of opening your own factory and manufacturing your own products soon, you might decide, actually, let's go and talk to Quivia and see what those guys could do. Several of our clients are now using it, and I'm only hearing good things. I'm yet to hear anything bad about what Quivia are doing, and hence why we partnered up with them, and hence why we didn't just kind of jump straight into the sponsorship and start putting them on the show. We do take some time over these things. The next one, then, updates from Spec, our agency. So I've got 3 points, and what we've done is we've had a little bit of a look back at the last 12 months, specifically with Google Ads, and where we are auditing accounts. So accounts that we then want to pitch for. So we get access to your account, your Google account, and then we start looking at how you're running your ads, and we recommend how we could run them better. And some of the things we look at is how much money you're wasting, what your search terms are, the areas that are profitable or more profitable than other areas, locked under the same budget. So which means you're not optimizing that this area is more profitable. So if you spend more on it and this is less profitable, spend less on it. Sometimes there are reasons why you wouldn't do that. But there are 3 things that we've been finding in these accounts. And I've gone back and tallied these things up. Now there's an average, and it's not an exact science in this, but somewhere between about 30 to 40%. An average budget wastage between 30 and 40%. That's average. That includes the guys that are doing it really, really well and the guys that are doing terribly. Google Ads is such an easy place to waste money. And that is said from someone who's been working on Google Ads since, I was trying to work this out the other day. It must have been 2008. I started running my first Google Ads account, possibly 2007. I'm heading towards 18 years in this space, which is amazing. It feels like I only started a year ago, although I'm a bit more experienced than a year. But been doing it a very long time. The second point relates to that. One of the biggest places that we see wastage and Performance Max on Google Ads has evolved now. So there's an even better way of looking at this. You can now see your search terms on Performance Max. That's what somebody's actually typed in to trigger your ads. They don't give you all the data, and partly because PMax doesn't just run on search, it runs on lots of channels. However, having a look at the search terms, a majority of the search terms we've seen since that feature was released a few months ago, a majority of the search terms we've seen in there are completely irrelevant. And only 1 in 10 accounts that we've looked at in the last 3 months, on average, that only 1 in 10 actually had a single negative keyword on Performance Max. Most of those accounts that we audited were being managed by other agencies. Of course, I'm going to sit here on my own podcast and say, we're the best agency. We go to this level of detail, and I would not hire or have somebody in my team that did not go to this level of detail. And we're starting to find facts like this, that only 1 in 10 accounts we're looking at has a single negative keyword. There is a limit on it, and we're close to the limit on most of our clients to make sure we're restricting that wastage. So last one, quick sip of tea. Last one is over 90% of the accounts that we've looked at in the last 12 months, so over 90%, almost all of them, had major, not minor, but major tracking issues. And a majority of these issues related to cookie banners. Without the right data, you are working blind. And I'm just going to leave that there because I'm sure if you work in PPC, you've had to think about that. So, yeah, mull that one over for a moment. Again, I hate cookies. I almost decided to do an episode. I've got one of our clients in today who I know listens to this. So hi, Tim. But yeah, I was mulling over just doing an episode purely about why I hate cookies so much. Maybe we'll do one of those in the next few weeks. Final update from the agency then. SEO world, there has been quite a major overhaul in Google's algorithm. It started in June and it finished rolling out right at the end of July or the first day or so of August. There's been a massive update. If you currently have, like, for example, and the example I've written down here that we've seen most effective is if you've got 20 pages or 20 products or 20 collections, I've made 20 up as a number, but if you've got lots of products, so imagine 20 that are variations of the same keyword. So the variations that could be size, color, dimensions, material, gender, etc., etc. Then Google is starting to penalize that. They want those things streamlined so that they've not got one person dominating too many of the listings on Google. It's quite a big update. And if you're heavily working in SEO, you're going to have to make some pretty big changes off the back of that. More to follow soon. I might do an episode on it once we've got a bit more data on it from some of our clients as to some of the changes we're making and what they've been doing for that. I might also invite our sponsor Yoast on as well to come and talk about that. But to finish off then, so our Quivia of the week, I love this. I only came out with this to hit record, but our question based on a piece of trivia. The question is, in the world rankings of all companies on companiesmarketcap.com, so I've used it a few times, what rank is Shopify? So of all companies around the world, on companiesmarketcap.com, what rank is Shopify? I'm going to sip my tea and let you think about that. So come up with a number. What ranking do you think Shopify is in the global rankings of companies on this website? And it's called Market Cap as well, but it's based on a few facts like turnover and things. So the answer is 100th, which in a way, when you start thinking about Google and Meta and stuff like that, they're obviously Microsoft, Google, and I think Meta's actually broken into multiple companies on some of the listings. Depends where you read this, but certainly Meta, Alphabet / Google, and Microsoft are always up in the sort of top 5, top 10 companies. But Shopify, purely as an e-commerce system, to be up at number 100 against all of the big organizations, many of which we've never even heard of, that make loads of technology around the world. I thought that was quite amazing. I hope you enjoyed today. These are getting shorter and shorter every single week. If you've got a cool fact that you want to send in, or a cool quote, like Alligator Pear has sent me this, whoever you are, thanks for sending that in. If you've got a cool quote, cool fact, and you want to send it in, then drop us an email, hello@winningwithshopify.com, and say, hey, Nick, here's my cool quote or my cool fact, and I will read them out and shout you out on the show as well. If you haven't already, check out last Friday's episode where we did best bits over the last few months through popular demand. We used to do best bits because we didn't have any content for that week to post or anything fresh or a fresh interview, but we did a best bits because so many of you have said actually the best bits are a great way of keeping up to date with things, and any episodes you missed, you go back and find that episode that clip was from as well. Hope you enjoyed today. Back again next Tuesday for a Tuesday Tea Break Talks, and also be posting on Friday with our next episode. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.